This is what I've been talking about. Poet pirate shirt type thing with the lace up v-neck and the flowy sleeves that gather out the wrist. I'm trying to make one of those in crochet. This one has short sleeves, but I did in fact make one of those. And the pattern will be put out at some point. Actually, that's what this is, but it's not quite ready. So this is the second draft of my Pumpkin Moonlight poet shirt pattern. And it's also kind of a crochet along. I decided that I didn't want to wait to show my fun new pattern, I guess first wearable pattern. So that's cool. I decided I didn't want to wait to show it or make everyone wait to have to, or make everyone else wait to have a chance to make it till I had made the entire second draft. So I'm just going to put these out as I make the second draft, and you can follow along with me if you want. It's sort of a tutorial, but not exactly. It's here partly so that I can give more clarity on certain things, but I won't be doing the top-down filming probably, because I'm trying to make this as easy on myself as possible, because I'm a little bit daunted by the fact that I'm putting out a kind of complicated wearable design. Also, I stutter, and I'm gonna do this with minimal editing, so it's more vlog style. It's more like my Midnight Ballroom podcasts on my other channel, which is now called Thorn in the Midnight Ballroom, because I got tired of being on that channel and worrying that my friends wouldn't know that it was me if I commented on their videos, and it feels weird to always be saying, by the way, it's Thorn. But yeah, so there won't be as much editing, and I do have a stutter, which it comes and goes. I mean, it's always present, but sometimes it's more here, sometimes it's less here. So please bear with me on that. So my name is Thorn. Welcome to my Gothic grotto. I make cool stuff for fiber goths, yarn witches, and crochet gays. I had to take a minute to remember my catchphrase. It's been a while since I said it. I should say it more. Fiber goths, yarn witches, and crochet gays. Because it's really hard to niche down when you're like all those things. So I tried to make it as snappy as possible. Or maybe that's where the weird clicking was coming from. I was just now editing my mushroom lace tutorial. And I kept hearing this weird clicking. I think it might be my chair. Of course, it's not doing it now, but when I wiggle a certain way, it kind of clicks, so fun to possibly solve that mystery. You'll probably have seen this will probably be up before the mushroom lace video will probably be up before this one, but I am currently uploading it, and it will be uploading for the next 14 hours probably. The internet here is not great. But anyway, let's get on to the second draft of this pattern. So I'm going to start with the right front panel, because that's the one that I have written a second draft pattern for, which means deciphering my notes from the first draft and making them into something that other people could probably read, I will put the instructions for I will put the pattern for the current section of the thing, the current section that we're working on, in the notes under each video. I think it would be a little bit complicated to put the words, the instructions on the screen this time. I don't mind doing that for more standard tutorials, but it is a lot of work. Although for my next tutorial, I do think I'm going to pause in front of each row and just have a black screen that has the entirety of the instructions for that row, and it'll be at the beginning of each chapter, like the chapters and the timestamps, so that it's just really easy for people to skip to that point and see everything that they have to do, and then I don't have to worry about people having to skip around in the chapter to find the next portion of the row, because I don't always have space to put the whole, like if it's a complicated row, I don't have space to put the whole thing here. Also, it might like cover up my face or hands, so I think that would be better overall, but I'll just be putting it in the description this time. So for our materials, I'm really glad I decided not to edit as much this time, because for most of my videos on this channel, I do like to have them flow a bit more, and it feels kind of powerful to have control over how much my stuttering shows up, because most of the time I don't have a choice, it just shows up. So but I do like, I'm kind of glad in some ways that you get to see, like the viewers of this channel get to see, yeah, this is the struggles I often have when speaking, so it might take a few seconds to get a word out sometimes. So anyway, the materials. I'm using this wonderful orange Campfire, that's the colorway, Wander yarn. It's the acrylic yarn from Furls. It's a 4-weight, so 4 medium worsted. I'm going to be using a 5 millimeter hook. This one is, that's my water bottle. Haunted hydration, witchy water. This one is from PJB Boutique on the Etsy. My other ergonomic 5 is, I believe, the Supernova from Furls, so I might also use that. Oh, they have the letters on the hooks, which is nice because that way I can tell you that a 5 is also a letter H. I am in the US, but I'm not too familiar with the letter sizing. That, at least I think the US is where they use that. But I will be using US stitch terms. And let me look at which ones we'll have to know, just so you know. So stitch, chain, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, modified V-stitch, and slip stitch. And some of those are cables, so I don't know if I will need to put that in a separate note. Might do that. There's also a back loop only and then front loop only stitch, which might count as its own thing. It sounds complicated, but it's not really when you do it. So I don't have a full list of the measurements yet. I do know that the one we're starting with is from the neck to the shoulder, and I'll mention whichever measurements we end up using as I'm crocheting right now. I don't know how long I'll go in this video, but I wanted to tell you what the modified V-stitch is. It'll be hard to do without yarn to work with, and I do just describe it in the pattern, but it's basically what I thought the V-stitch was, but I think the V-stitch is 2 complete tall stitches, say double crochet, instead of 2 crochet together, which is what mine is. So it looks like this. So it's basically an upside down V. You start the first double crochet, and this works the same for the treble, which is what many of the V stitches are in my pattern. But you start with one of the legs. Then when you have 2 loops on the hook, you don't end it like a normal double crochet. Instead, you go into the other place where you're anchoring the other leg, which is like there's usually a stitch in between those two, so that they form a pyramid kind of. And then when you have 3 loops on your hook from making the other one, you just put the yarn through all 3 of them, and that way you have the top is sort of like a half double crochet with the extra loop, but the bottom is 2 tall stitches that become one. And I'm not sure if usually you would decrease a treble stitch by waiting till you have 3 loops on the hook. I'll have to think about that, or look it up, but in my pattern I do have it's also with 2 loops on the hook. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. I'm going to assume that you either know or can look up most of the stitches, like most of the individual stitches. That word individual is always very hard to say. It's one of my problem words. And yeah, that's I will be telling you what I do, or what we're doing if you're also making this pattern with those stitches. Oh, I forgot. The shirt I showed at the beginning, the sewn shirt, is from the same website as I got this really cool new shirt from. It's the first time I've worn it today, which is why I wanted to film. But the website is like medieval collectibles or something like that. I'll put it in the description. I'm not sponsored by them or Furls or anyone else. I'm just doing my thing. So it's there is a lot to go over. I'm just kind of nervous because this is a big project. So let's get started. So on the right front panel, the odd rows will be worked from the armhole side toward the neck or chest. And the even rows, including the starting chain, that's row 0. I guess it's 0 in indexed programmer joke. So the even rows and the starting chain will be worked from the neck to the armhole. And then later on, that'll be like from the middle of the chest to the side seam. Right. To start with, we have 100 grams in these skeins, so that's nice to know, so I can keep track of how much yarn this takes roughly. All right, coffee, very important. Actually, let me start by showing you what we're doing on here. So this is my right. We're starting at the shoulder seam and going down here. And then we have this little ridge. We add the black part much later. And then we do the cables. And we add more width just under the armhole, which involves chaining some extra things. And then just the rows just get a lot longer by however much you chained. And if we get there, we probably won't get all the way here tonight, but we end this section right here where the black starts, because the black hem is a separate section. So that's our roadmap. I actually haven't written the instructions for anything besides the right front panel. I'm hoping I can sufficiently, I'm hoping I can do the left panel so that it mirrors it, but if not, I'll just update you. And this is a design process vlog. So starting chain, we're chaining the shoulder seam. And I have here chain an odd number plus 4. So I'm going to chain 5 to start with. Obviously it will not be 5, but I thought this way at least I know. I have to chain more in increments of 2. My shoulder is, or both of them, are, well, I'm not sure if they're narrow, but they feel like it because they're so sloped, which has been a problem in making clothes before. So I know that I chain a relatively small amount. So last time I chained 13, so let's see how that works. And minus 4, that would be 9, so good, still an odd number. The prototype should have the right, the prototype should have the right number of stitches, but a lot of times I might just fudge something and think, well, next time I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a nice standard way of doing it. And 11, 12, 13. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like this is much smaller, even for my shoulders. I'm actually going to check my previous notes. Oh, interesting. It was actually a chain 13 plus 4 that I did last time, so no wonder. It was the same weight of yarn, I'm pretty sure, but never sure how to count this first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I feel like it's still a little small. 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, 17 feels like a good place to start because I still have to make the edging for the neck border, and I don't want that right up against my neck, and I don't want the sleeve seam to be falling off either. If you do make this along with me, I would love to hear feedback of any sort, especially since I want this to be a very size inclusive pattern. One nice thing about the cables I found out is that it just fits really nicely over a stomach. Like I have more of a gut than I used to, but it's comfortable and like it looks good. So I mean my body, yes, I'm trying to be more um body pos- positive, but also the shirt looks really good. So it doesn't make me feel self-conscious about that, which is nice. And what are we doing next? All right, row 1. Okay. So I think I need to chain 4. (17 plus 4 is 21, so let me recount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, as long as you're okay with the fact that the count may be off, like, it's fine to just fudge it if it gets too complicated. So we're working a treble crochet, which is the one with 2 yarn overs. In the 5th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is now an odd row, so we're going towards the neck or chest, which means that's important because the armhole side is relatively straight, whereas the neck or chest side is slanting. It's kind of increasing on this side. That's one reason why the panels are not like you can't just do the same one and then flip it over. Then after that, let me bring my hands here instead of off over there in front of my goat. So now for the repeating pattern, chain 1, and then we work the V stitch across. Skipping every other chain. So that means there's another treble. And we anchor it in the same as our previous treble, in the same chain. We have 2 loops on the hook and yarn over as if we're doing another treble. And we skip 1 chain, go to the next one. We slowly work our way through 2 sets at a time. Oh look, now we have 3 loops. Now we treat it like a half double crochet and just yarn over once more, pull it through the whole way. So I have never figured out how to get my camera to focus, but that is how it should look. I mean, how to focus on things that are not my face. I have tried covering up my face, but it still doesn't work. So that's our first V, and it's kind of confusing to me, at least, because I was like, okay, so are the V's the right side up ones or the upside down ones? I've gathered they're like the official V by itself is just like an upside down V, and then you connect them with chain ones. At least that's how it is in my pattern. So we chain 1 again, and we go back into the chain that we just anchored our second leg of the V in, and we mostly make a treble. Now we make the beginning of another one and skip a chain. I would like it to become part of my lore as a YouTuber that I do not like working in crochet chains. I like working around the chain. Maybe I should put that on my merch. And finish off the V. That's what we're starting to have. And it's a little baby pumpkin Moonlight shirt. Chain 1. I'm probably going to treat the rest of this as just like a vlog until we do something different, so that I can just talk at you and like we're hanging out. Because yeah, that's fun. I think I just did a double crochet because I forgot to yarn over again a second time, I mean. It is harder to talk and crochet at the same time, but I mean, it's fun. And it's kind of like alive, except I'm a little bit less worried about being on and just making sure that I'm being a good host, because if anything really bad happens, I can just edit it, though I'm gonna try not to, at least not too much. But this way I can focus more on what I'm doing, because I do want to kind of have this be a crochet along. I really admire Evelyn from Pink Sheep Design, who has done multiple crochet alongs with her patterns and managed to keep the like her own engagement with the chat going. So takes a lot of multitasking skill. So shout out to my friend Vivian from Land Sea Sky Travel. Yeah, I keep doing double crochet. No. This will take a while to get into my muscle memory. Yes, I just did a whole shirt with treble, but like it's been a while, and I usually do double crochet. But anyway, shout out to Vivian, who has hired me to work as a host on a couple of her virtual conferences, which she does for different topics in like the Celtic pagan sphere, and they've got a really good mix of like academic, historical, this is what we know from the evidence, and also like more, personal, mystical gnosis type stuff, which is also really important. And I'm really glad that they're both valued in that sphere of, like, most of my friends are kind of in that circle of people that Vivian knows, which is a really wide circle. And okay, cool. I'm starting the second leg of the V. Okay. But anyway, that experience of being a chat host and just making sure that I'm there in the chat to respond to people, to offer resources or help, or just jump in and say, oh, I can answer that question, blah blah blah, or I'll make a note of your question to ask the person who's presenting, and just making people feel welcome and seen. I've noticed I keep doing that in other chats where I'm not an official host, like if I'm in someone's audience for a live, especially if I know the person well who's on the screen. And of course I'm mainly thinking of my friend and fellow yarn ghoul, Kayla of Alt Knots. Like, the community she's built has just become really close friends with each other, and I've noticed I jump into the hosting mode, which is kind of fun. And I also noticed, like, I was observing people before I started my own channel, just thinking, okay, so how does one do this? And I noticed that being on a live is a lot like hosting. You have to be kind of on in the same way. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm good at hosting, and it's something that I enjoy. I think I could do lives, and I have done a couple lives, and I love it. It's just frustrating because my living situation is not set up to really do lives as often as I want to, or even regular videos. Like, this isn't why I'm the Midnight Ballroom in my other channel, but I do film at midnight often because I'm trying to not have other people, I'm trying not to disrupt other people's schedule, because I'm basically in the downstairs living room with some privacy screens up. It's a complicated situation, but luckily I will be able to move out soon into my own space, so it's really good for many reasons. if I ever start a conversation thread or start to say something and then forget, like, please feel free to just ask. I have ADHD, and also I'm especially distracted while I'm doing this, so I really don't mind. Plus, it gives me a reason to ask for comments. Like, I feel like it's always easier to say, oh, let me know about this specific thing that I mentioned. Like, if you have an opinion or input on it, then just say, comment. I mean, yeah, I want people to comment, but like, yeah, I've been learning a lot about the ins and outs of how to market myself as a small business and how to engage with people in a way that they want to engage with. And like, I am being as genuine as I can. Like, I want to be genuine, but also it's like, how do you, what part of your genuine self are you showing, basically? Right, so what are we doing at the end of the row, which I've gotten to? It apparently we just do this until the last chain, so okay. Right, this is the first. Oh, okay. Might have actually miscounted my initial chains. I don't know, but it's fine now. I have ended my closed V. By closed, I mean pointing, like the two legs are down here and the point is up there, so it's basically upside down. The confusing thing is this will be like this, so we're working down, so it'll be right side up. But don't think about that too much. It's not relevant yet. So if we just left it like this, it would kind of slant inwards, and we're trying to get it to slant outwards, I believe, because this is an odd row, and it will end at the neck or chest. So we chain one and end with just a single standing treble in the same chain that we just worked into with the second leg of the last V. And that's row one. It is, you know, curling a bit right now. That's normal. Like, by the time you get the whole garment constructed, you know, it'll straighten things out. So row two, from the neck back over to the armhole. It'll get a lot easier to tell once you know, work the armhole, and by the time we get down to the cables, you won't have any trouble telling. Not least because the cables are only on the right side, the front side. Right as in right side, wrong side, not as in right, left. But we are working the right panel. I realized that my thing is flipped, although I did figure out how to unflip it, possibly, in the video program I use. So anyway, I think we're just going to do one more row and then probably call it a night, because I did not expect I didn't expect to get that far, to get very far, but this is, I did expect to get a little bit further, but that's fine. So chain 5, this is row 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we turn, which I already have. Now we work the V stitch into the chain 1 space. So the chain 5 counts as the freestanding treble and then chain 1, so that's why we just start with the V-stitch. So the first leg of our V-stitch is in that space, and then we skip the top of the V and go into the next chain 1 space to work our second leg of the treble. There, like that. So they're kind of, I was going to say offset, but they're not really. They're just like a series of arrows pointing up, and the base of the previous one is just like right on either side of the base of the next one is just right on either side of the point of the previous one. Then we chain 1, work our first treble, that's a double. Okay, yarn over the correct number of times, which is 2. First treble in the same space, and that's not a full treble, it's the first leg of the V-stitch. Then we work our second leg in a different space, pull through all 3 loops, chain 1. You know what? It would be cool if I could get to row 4. No. Yeah, just get to row 4, not do row 4. Because that way you would have something to do. And so would I, before I come back and do another one of these. Because rows 2 and 3 are the repeating pattern until the panel is wide enough, like the slant is wide enough to reach the center of your chest, or like where your breastbone is. So just increase as much as you want, basically. And that way we could all do that and then meet back here for the next part. I think I'll do that. Just thinking about what to talk about, and I thought of my patron god, Gwyn ap Nudd. He's the Welsh fairy king, and I understand him as the ruler of the otherworld, which is, well, the Welsh version of the otherworld is called Annwn, and it's the land of fairy, but also of the dead. So I see him as like the Lord of the Dead and the Lord of Winter, and he rises from the dead in my personal understanding and tradition, like my own spiritual path. He rises from the dead to lead the wild hunt on Halloween. How cool is that? It's freaking goth fairy king. And I talk about this more on my other channel, which is more about my spiritual journey, as well as crochet and other parts of my life. But when I first met him, or rather put a name to the deity that I had been talking to as a pagan witch for a really long time, but didn't really know his name, there was just this lightning spark. Like, it was terrifying because of how intense it was. I was like, I absolutely love you, and I don't know why, and I don't know why I feel like I'm just, yes, I'm just yours. I have to be with you, but where is this coming from? So it was intense, and I'm not the only person who's had that experience with meeting him. So that was really encouraging to read about. Um, just like, oh, cool, it's not just me. And the other reason Halloween's really important to me, besides like all the spooky stuff, is I took my vows to him on Halloween in 2019, and at the time they were and still are lifelong vows of dedication in a like a monk or a nun type of sense, like the religious and also like fealty, like a servant to their lord type of vows. Like that's kind of some of the frameworks that he and I work in. But also later, I after much discussion on the matter, I and this was mostly coming from him, but he didn't want to push me on it. He just wanted to, you know, he didn't want me to not consider it if because I thought it wouldn't work if it was actually what I wanted, if that makes sense. It's very hard to lie to myself about either good or bad things when I'm with him. So the thing that he wanted me to consider was, what if we considered my dedication vows also marriage vows? And at first I was like, well, what if it would change our vibe? Like we already were like that, you know, we had a romantic and sexual component to our relationship, as well as my like spiritual devotion to him. And so I was wondering whether I need to go into my standard spiel of just like what is a god spouse or spirit partner, but I'm not going to, because it feels like it would put me in a defensive mode right now, and I don't want to be in that mode. I'm happy to answer questions if you have questions, but like I'm just going to treat it as, yes, this is just part of my lore. And so yeah, about 5 months later, I realized, yeah, I really do want to consider myself married to him. And so I did. That was when the pandemic was just starting to ramp up, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and I was stuck in a house and in a marriage with a human, a human who was not good news, who I was often scared of. But I just remember standing there in that situation with a otherworldly partner that no one but me could see and hear, and just like being so happy, even though no one knew, and like the outside situation in the physical world was not great. So yeah. So we've gotten to the end of row 2. um, I was reading row 3 by accident. So my last V stitch should be worked into the last 2 chain 1 spaces in the previous row. So yeah, that is what we have. And it says do not chain 1 after last V stitch, which I did out of habit. So we're gonna undo that. And instead we just treble in the turning chain. The lack of chain 1 is so that this will stay a little bit more up and down than the other side, because the armhole doesn't need to like slant out as much. Then row 3, chain 4, turn, treble in the first chain 1 space. So we're actually skipping this one that we worked because there's no chain 1 space between this treble and the first V. And then we skip the top of the first V as well and just go into the chain 1 space and treble. Then we chain 1 and work the V-stitch across. So yeah, besides people who love crochet, and like that's always nice to talk about on my channel, but also like I want this to be a space where people can talk about spiritual witchy things, like this spiritual side of, especially like the pagan witchy occult side of crochet. But I don't want to turn away anyone who has a like any kind of spiritual thing going, that's as long as you're not harming other people. So I would love to, I really love interfaith just discussions. So yeah, I want you all to feel welcome to chat about stuff. Also, you don't have to have any kind of spiritual belief to be here either. It's not a requirement. Right. I really like this like crochet with me vlog style thing that I'm doing. It's making the pattern design feel less daunting. And this way, when I know I have another one coming up, I can go, okay, so let me figure out a more readable version of it the next part. Part of this is me testing what I wrote to see if it does work, because I know what I did, but sometimes I'm not sure if I wrote the notes correctly, or I might want to change something, and of course I have to test that. This yarn is really soft, but it splits sometimes. Speaking of soft, someone said I should try making summer shirts with plant yarn, which I would love to, especially like bamboo. I have one skein of it so far, which I haven't done anything with, but I think it would be cool to try it out with a natural yarn that just lets the California sun not, you know, make everything quite as hellish with my sensory issues as normal. I'm also looking forward to seeing how the acrylic will do. Hoping it'll be soft enough to at least wear, for me at least, when it's not the summer. And I will probably still keep this one as a short-sleeved one, but I want to include at least a long-sleeve option for this one, and there will be others that are meant to be more long-sleeved but may have a short-sleeved option. I'm going to be the crocheted poet shirt guy. I don't have to be the only one, but like that is what I'm intending to spearhead. So that'll be cool. I have the pixel graph cans of a risque nature often. And the crochet poet shirts, yeah. My Etsy shop is Thirst Pixels. If you're curious, it is not safe for work, mostly. This one is a portrait of Gwen, who I was talking about earlier. I'm in the process of putting the border on. It's that pineapple lace I made the tutorial for a while back. And it's weird, like I thought I measured all the pieces because I did them and then I'm going to attach them, but the long sides are too long and the short sides are too short. The long sides, it's fine. Like I kind of like the look of how I'm doing them like one's going up and the other one's going down, and so the ends just flop off. And I was gonna have them have the top and bottom go like that, so that all four sides would just kind of have an extra end of pineapple lace, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I'll probably just do a short, like a small picot border on the top and bottom, because it is kind of hard to work to crochet to attach the pineapple border to the top and bottom, I found. I think because we don't have the long stitches that are on the side, or you know, the posts of the long stitches. So anyway, to end row 3, repeat from asterisk until you've worked a V-stitch into the last chain space and the turning chain of the previous row. Okay, so our last V is, it's got 1 foot in the last chain 1 space and 1 foot in the turning chain. Chain 1, make an extra V-stitch entirely in the turning chain. So that's me doing this. So now we have the bottoms of 3 trebles anchored in the turning chain. 2 of them are up here in a V-stitch, and the other one is over here in a V-stitch. And chain 1, and then make 1 more treble, which will be freestanding and turning chain. And you can start to see this one is really, this side is really starting to slant outward. And I don't know, it may slant a little bit much for me at this point, but I don't really mind because it has a lot of ground to cover, at least for me. Then you repeat rows 2 and 3 until it's wide enough to reach the center of your chest. You might want to have a little bit of space in between, so I think that when we're done with the neckline, we want to have a little bit of space for the V lacing up, because to me that's the best part of a poet shirt. But that's the basic idea. And I will put the instructions that we've done so far, or maybe the whole thing, but I'll highlight what we've done so far. By the whole thing, I mean the whole right panel, not the whole shirt. That would be a lot. But I'll highlight what we have done so far in the description, and I will film another one when I've done enough rows to, I guess, get to here. So that'll be a while. Yeah, thanks for joining me. It's fun to think that by the end of this series, I might be moved out into a different place. So yeah, we started this on July 31st. Obviously, it'll be uploaded sometime in August because it is 11:32 p.m. So anyway, have a... All right. My goat says bye. Bye. Have a good night, and I will see you next time.